we talk to a lot of people who own headphones.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
Lots of them.
Yeah.
Email, phone, you name it. We talk to people.
Okay.
And shows too, face-to-face, person to person. And the one thing that we don't usually ask them is, did you ever own a good speaker system before? And it's kind of a cool question when you think about it, because it's like when you listen to speakers in a room, it's a completely different experience than headphones. And I think in talking to a lot of guys that own headphones, I think a lot of them have never had speakers before for all kinds of reasons.
Usually apartments.
Yeah, or they're still living at home and they got a bedroom and they got a room for it. It's a room. It's usually a room, money, whatever. I mean, headphones are a lot cheaper than speakers. So bottom line is that, let's talk about that. Like, what's the difference between a listener, a person who has never heard a speaker system versus people who have when it comes relative to headphones?
We've seen a little bit of that because especially in the early days when we were doing trade shows, headphones weren't quite as popular as they are now. So you saw more people that were just interested in audio, music, and they probably had a speaker system. And there were quite a few of them that then said, hey, let's give this a try. Let's listen to this headphone thing. And maybe they had very limited experience with high-end headphones before that. But occasionally you see people that are like, wow, they're really put back by this experience. They find it to be impressive that you could get that kind of experience from a headphone. But it certainly depends on your experience level, what you're used to and stuff. And I find you don't see that type of like sharp reaction that you can occasionally get with people that don't have experience. The average normie off the street, you give them a fancy headphone, they're kind of, more often than not, they're going to be like, I don't know, sounds okay.
Speakers are like a different experience.
Well, yeah.
Especially
in setup.
Room.
Headphones, you put them on, 1266,
Yeah.
But
that's kind of
most
like
headphones, you put them on, that's it. But yeah, it's treatment, space, size, placement. There's all kinds of variables with speakers. So.
But they're cool. They're like, I think what speakers do is it's a different perspective on the music. Like it's kind of like going to a live band or a live concert. The speakers are always, acoustically, they're always in front of you. So therefore, the music's coming from the front.
Well, unless it's multi-channel.
Sure, but for the most part, we're talking about two speakers.
Right.
So it's always in front of you, and you're back so many rows listening to this.
Right.
And so now let's say you try to duplicate that in headphones. That becomes difficult because headphones are right here, and physically there's no good way to put them there without them being speakers in a room.
Oh.
So, and so that's kind of the trick. Like with 1266, we played that trick where you're able to space it away from your head and kind of create space like there's a room. It's like adding a room to the headphone, which it's a very unique headphone in that. But bottom line is that, I think people who have speaker systems and are used to their room environment might have a difficult time conforming or getting accustomed to headphone listening because they're trying to reproduce what's going on in
it's what you're used
system.
To, right? You're used to having speakers in front of you. And I see a lot of people that come from speakers, they really usually don't like in-ears because that really, it's like right in the middle of your
head. There's no space.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So that's like
your
other extreme.
Your ear canal doesn't make a good room.
Yeah.
Let's just say that, but yeah, bottom line is that, looking at it, I see, I think with some people, you could almost tell when they own speakers by the way they adjust headphones on their head. Like some people will just put them on and they're done and like, oh, you're a headphone guy. And then people will be like playing with them, moving around, going, they're trying to make the space different. And that comes from experience with headphones too. So I'm not saying that those, but I think guys that move things around a little bit, I think are adjusting, are trying to. They understand the acoustics of the situation. You know what I mean? There's acoustics.
Well, and going the other way, coming from speakers, a lot of people, they're like, oh, can I just use this? They have a, a Macintosh receiver, and it has a 1/4 inch on the front, and they're thinking, oh, that's perfect. That's all I need for my headphones, right?
Yeah.
But, it may not be, though. That's the thing. But since you just assume headphone's a headphone, right? So it is a different thing.
Well, I think the first thing that you got to realize if you're a speaker guy is that when you go to headphones is that they are headphones. It's kind of like comparing oat milk to regular milk to whole milk. they both can taste like milk in some ways, but one's milk and one isn't. And, it's like with anything, the pasta noodles made with whatever the hell they make them out of, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then you get the fake pasta, which is, made of beans or something like that.
Sucks.
Yeah, right. The different texture, right? And I mean, that's the problem. Like, you're comparing apples to oranges at that point. It's not. So, the deal is that you need to realize that both can give you a very, very good experience, both headphones and speakers. You just need to let the brain adjust for that kind of room, that new room, which is here rather than out there. And and you could get accustomed to both. It just give it a little bit of time, I think. But let's turn that around now. All right, so now we've got kids, let's say younger people, right, who probably have never owned speakers. They've only used headphones.
Right.
Now let's say they want to try speakers. Mm-hmm. Now what's their limitation?
I think it's easier that way than the other way.
Yeah.
The issue I see with most people that are big on speakers, they've only ever done speakers, is they usually don't actually give headphones a chance, or they make the assumption that because they already like their system and it's tailored for them, that all their electronics and gear are going to work perfectly on a headphone. And they think they could just plug a headphone into their system and get the same type of experience they get with their speakers on the headphone. That's rarely the case. Usually you need to treat it almost like a different system and build the system around the headphone if you're looking for the best of the best. Now, headphone people, they tend to be more aware of the nuance in things because things are a lot smaller. So I think naturally as a human, you tend to think, well, it's small, how much of a difference could it make? It's only this piece of wire or whatever, this connector, this different thing. There's a lot more people that are really into trivial nuance.
Well, even now with the earpads, like now
headphones.
a lot of us are rolling earpads,
Yeah.
and the materials of the earpads, I mean, that
It's
changes,
night and day.
It changes the acoustic of this miniature room you're wearing. And but yeah, so that in part can be applied to a room with
it's the same
speakers
thing.
in it.
It's just you need more of what
Yeah, it's a
panels.
bigger area.
I think it's easier to go one way than the other.
I think going to speakers is easier too. I think it would be, looking at it.
Yeah.
Because, getting it right is a different issue.
Of course.
Different story.
Same system.
It's
Still tough.
complicated.
Yeah.
But I think, that the difference is you're fighting the room with speakers.
Always.
And most people don't realize how much of the room you hear. Like the way you tell, if you ever have speakers and you move to a different room.
Yep.
The same speakers, same system, you go to a different room and it messes with you.
Yep.
Your brain's like, oh my God, what did I just do? Usually gets ruined. And the reason for that, and in fact, people with headphones do this too. The reason for that is because your brain actually over a few weeks or course of time gets accustomed to the acoustic that you're listening to.
Right.
It gets used to it. And it negates the mistakes. Your brain learns how to focus and recreate the image and all that stuff over time. And when you change rooms, you change the reflection points, you change everything that's going on in the room. Now your brain's got to refocus on what's coming out of the speakers. Yeah. And it takes weeks or months, depends on the person. Headphones are the same thing. If you're accustomed to a certain kind of headphone and you change to a completely different, let's say you've only listened to dynamic headphones, right?
Yeah.
One type of driver. Now you go to a planar or
Things
vice
sound
versa.
different.
Yeah, I mean they have each driver tech has limitations as to what it's capable of doing in certain ways with the music and the acoustic.
I think electrostatics are the people that never heard them and hear them for the first time. They're like, this is completely different to my dynamic usually, Yeah. And it's like, yep, it's quite different.
Yeah, and planars too. I mean, they're different speaker technologies. It's the same with speakers in a room too. They have planar speakers, 6 foot high planars you put in a room, and versus woofers and tweeters, right? Dynamic speakers, and each one's going to react differently to the room, and therefore requires different methods of setup, and headphones
especially
are
giant planars.
Yeah,
they need to move them away from the wall. 7 foot high.
Well, and headphones are kind of like that too. So, but the thing is, because there are certain factors if you're accustomed to a dynamic headphone, certain amplification that works well with them versus a planar, and these are all things though. Anyway, bottom line is that if you're a speaker guy and you're coming to headphones, expect experiment. And you know what I find is like I've talked to a lot of people who own planar speakers, and they are actually gravitate toward planar headphones for obvious reasons.
Or
and they won't
electrostats,
like
same
any
thing.
other kind.
Yeah, right.
They won't like the dynamics because they have planars in a room and they're used to that somewhat sound emanating from the whole
Yeah.
panel type thing. You know, there's not any one point source. Like
I mean,
a
that
clear-
happens in speakers to speakers. I remember the one show. I always remember one guy walked in, and we were showing dynamic speakers, and he walked in, looked, didn't even like let's just look, saw that they weren't electrostats.
Yeah.
Oh, it sounds like a box. And then he left.
Yeah.
Right. So there's people. Yeah. And
Same with
just
tube
between
amps and
speakers.
solid state. Yeah,
Same thing.
people see
You get a
one or
lot of
the
that.
other.
And that's
Yeah.
sort of what I was getting at. I think I did a bad job explaining it. But with speakers, you get more of that type of like strong reactions where people look at something and they judge it with their eyes. Not to say it doesn't happen in headphones. Obviously it does. But I think experienced people in headphones are more likely to look at things a little bit more critically, which is strange. Because I think for some reason, speaker people tend to want to see bigger changes than headphone people. Like it needs to be more visual, it seems.
It is. It's in front of you. You can't see shit you're wearing on your head anyway, right?
I guess it's just a difference in
mirror.
like training, how
So-
you're
Yeah.
used to hearing the difference.
Yeah.
You know,
I never really thought about it, but yeah, because like tube amps, you know, and like it's easy to make enough power in a tube amp for any headphone, right? You know,
Right.
We're talking 10 watts max, but like speakers, opposite problem, you know, like to get
It
like
needs to be.
200-300 watts in tubes, you need, you know,
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
lot. It's a lot of heat.
A lot of
of
heat.
tubes.
a lot of
I'm
money.
talking
It's impractical.
A dozen
Right.
tubes per
You
amp.
could do it,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's way more expensive.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so I guess you perceive them
Well,
differently.
and in those systems, that's why people tend to run tubes in the front end. They'll
Yeah.
run a tube preamp and go for the solid state amp, and it's kind of the best of both worlds. You got tubes in there somewhere,
Yeah.
you know. But yeah, if that's the sound you're after. But then there are people that run 2-watt tube amps on highly efficient speakers, and
But then you
love it
only
to
can
death.
run highly efficient speakers.
you know. But it won't play the way some people. Anyway,
Yeah,
we're,
right.
we're
Yeah.
obviously getting off track. But bottom line is that you know, I mean. Have you ever listened to a good speaker system before? If you haven't, go to a specialty store or anywhere that has good speakers, or Best Buy, and have a listen to some speakers just to get a different perspective on what the acoustics of the room is. Just move around while you're listening to mute track, right? Sit back, forward, move around. Just realize what the room
yeah, it makes a big
does.
difference.
Yeah, I mean the room.
It's easy to do, doesn't
You're
cost
dealing with
anything.
reflections off the ceiling and the walls and everything that's in there, and then things absorb, like furniture absorbs sound, the carpeting absorbs sound. So you've got all these things messing with what's. Get closer to the speaker, and you'll realize what a speaker really sounds like. Then you get further away, and now the room starts to take over. And these are the things you don't experience with headphones because they're right there, they're intimate, and
Well.
but you can. And that's what the pad rolling's been doing now, where we got different shaped pads,
changing the
different
room.
materials. You're changing the room.
That's
You're
right.
changing the absorption and reflection characteristics on your head. And that's the same thing, you know, kind of, it really is the same thing. And now we got the bass ported pads, which is changing the bass response to the headphone itself. So, you know, kind of cool. It's cool to be able to do that with a headphone. And I think it would help people understand it more if they did listen to a good speaker system. So if you haven't done that, do it.
Yeah.
You know, do it.
Yeah, now for like the most visceral like demo, you like a Focal, you know, like we were just in Toronto.
Yeah.
You go check out that. They crank the hell out.
What are those $350,000 pair of speakers?
Yeah, and then they had like 1,500 watt amps.
Yeah.
Oh my god,
Those are serious.
Now that's an experience.
They had to run a 240 line to the amps. They were serious, man.
Yeah, I don't know how much power that takes,
Yeah,
but it's
but
wow.
It's gotta be. It's gotta be
Damn.
serious. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they had like a massive cable running down the hall, entering the room just to pound it.
Diesel generator in the parking
Yeah,
lot.
they needed something special for that.
Yeah.
That's cool though. I mean, that's the stuff to me that's inspirational to be able to, you know, first of all, you got to thank companies who set up a system like that because it's a lot of work
Yeah.
for a show. It's a 2-day show, whatever it is, 3 days. You know, you got, what do you got? Maybe 20 hours of time there with people, you know, total for the few days that you're there. And they just spent 3 days or 4 days straight, like numerous people, just getting this right, tweaking the speakers in that room. I mean, you
Yeah.
got to set this up. You can't just drop speakers in a room and call it a day. If you're going to show that and demo that right, you are spending hours just to get the speakers adjusted in the
Well,
room so it
that one
doesn't
time
sound
Focal
bad.
did that in Denver, remember? And it was like 5 or 6 speakers that Utopias they were running, like all in a circle.
Yeah,
Remember hearing that?
yeah.
Wow.
Well, Ray from Kimber Cable,
Same
Ray
thing, yeah.
Kimber,
Yeah, with
he used
the
to set up
Sonys.
those huge planers.
Oh,
well,
yeah.
he was
He
running
did
Sony
Sony
speakers
too,
later,
yeah.
but he used to bring his own. I can't remember the name of the model of the speakers, but they were like, he'd bring like 5 or 6 panel speakers.
Yeah.
And we're talking 300 pounds a piece, and they're 6 foot high. Just shipping them is dangerous to a show. I mean, you're asking for damaging a speaker every time you ship them. But he did it because he wanted to show people what sound
Well, you're
would sound
recording the
like,
music with mics at those speaker positions. I guess that's how you get rid of the room, right? You just surround yourself with speakers.
It helps.
And then you need to record the music
it's
like
it's
that.
kind of like
but,
near field, only
yeah.
you're surrounded with it.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's what we're saying. It's exciting. It is kind of exciting to hear speakers in a room, and then compare that to your headphone sound. And you'll find that headphones do a lot of cool things that speakers can't because they are more intimate. You can actually get more detail and resolution out of a headphone, a real good headphone, than you can out of a speaker system because you have no room. You're direct coupled, right? You think about it. A headphone is just a speaker right by your head. There's no room, no nothing. Directly connected to the amplifier. There's no crossovers. There's none of that stuff for most.
Well, sometimes
in-ears have that stuff. But bottom line is that you're avoiding a lot of, I'd call it stupidity, but a lot of there's nothing. It's a direct connection to the speaker and your ear canal. And by negating all those things in between, like crossover components and stuff like that, you're eliminating those interactions that occur that muck up the music. And so headphones can be very intimate, very clear sounding, and very true to the source relative to speakers. But there's nothing cooler than a big pair of speakers with a bunch of subs in a room.
That's right.
A couple thousand watts. Nothing cooler than that. So
Yeah, if you have the room and the space,
they both have
you
their
can make
place.
a whole lot of noise.
Yeah. I think you got to have both myself.
Well, it is nice.
I wouldn't give up my jail Fathom subs for anything.
Oh.
Yeah, well,
Speakers are a little tougher to do.
they're a little tougher. You got to have the room, and you got to be able to have someone. You got to be able to make the noise without bugging people too badly.
Yeah, you need a very, very large house with considerable separation to your neighbors
Or you buy a second house, and that's
Yeah.
your music house.
There you go.
on
Yeah.
top of a mountain.
Yeah. When you build a separate garage with a walkway above from the house to
Yeah.
the garage,
Oh.
and you close the door.
Yeah, but if you're cranking, you're still going to hear it.
Yeah,
You're going to hear it 5 buildings away.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Nobody's perfect. On that note, everyone, thank you for watching. Take care of yourselves.